I always joke that my wife, Eliza, knew me better than I knew myself, but recently it felt like she lost the instruction manual. Little signs began to catch my attention. A flinch when I brushed past her, the phone seemingly glued to her hand, even on bathroom trips, and her laughter, forced like she was trying to convince someone of something, though I wasn't sure who. One night at dinner, I went with the usual small talk, asking her how her day went. Her answer was hollow. It was fine. Same old. As she listlessly stirred her soup, I suggested we might take a trip to the mountain cabin we loved. She looked at me like I was speaking a different language and said, "That's nice, Michael," before glancing back at her phone. I was thrown. The thing is, I'm not Michael. I watched her, but she didn't notice. She didn't even catch her slip. I decided to keep quiet, just sitting back with the gut feeling I'd been ignoring for too long. Something was definitely up, and she was pretending everything was just perfect. The next morning with her in the shower, she left her keys on the counter, and curiosity got the better of me. I rummaged through her car's glove box. Nothing. No receipts or notes. But I expected that. She was too smart to leave any evidence. I decided to install an old work dash cam, one with video and audio, to sync everything online as soon as the car started. After a few tinkering minutes under the dashboard, it was ready. When she finally came down, wrapped up in her world, I offered to warm her car since it was a chilly morning. She handed me the keys without a second thought. I kept my act together for the next few days, talking about groceries and weekend plans, and she mentioned a late meeting on Thursday. I gave her a nod, saying I'd survive on a frozen pizza. Her reply was a vague smile and a half-hearted peck on the cheek. That night, after she'd fallen asleep, I looked at the dash cam feed. I sifted through files, each with timestamps and snapshots. Thursday's meeting stood out. The audio was crystal clear, faint wipers and a soft pop song. Then I heard her voice again, bright, happy, a tone I hadn't heard in a while. "Did you miss me today?" she asked teasingly. A man's voice answered, matching her tone. "Every minute, but you knew that." Her laughter was genuine, something she hadn't shared with me in ages. They talked about a bar they liked, a conference they seldom seemed to attend, and Michael planning their next meetup while remaining cautious. My stomach dropped. He wasn't just some side fling. He was integrated into her life. They drove somewhere discreet, and the sounds that followed were unmistakably intimate. I played on, file after file. Same thing. Flirting, anticipation, using the back seat for more than commuting. I shut the laptop, not shaking, just sitting in the dark, absorbing what I knew but hadn't wanted to accept. She wasn't mine anymore. Every day as she took her trips or had whispered conversations she thought were private, I observed. Patterns surfaced, her distant days, times she'd glow as if lit from within, and precisely when she'd switch from icy to falsely sweet. The recordings didn't lie. She was the one weaving stories. I waited patiently for her to slip, a slip that'd affect more than just me. That slip came with a dinner invitation from our mutual friends, Matt and Jenna, longtime vacation partners. Eliza was eager to go. "We've been so secluded," she argued. "It'll be good for us." I found it ironic, considering. I agreed and even got myself a new shirt, but she didn't realize I wasn't signing up to be the clueless husband at that dinner party. When Saturday finally came, I was all set. I had everything lined up. Those dash cam videos were sorted out, the juiciest clips picked and backed up everywhere. And I'd watched them enough to really understand the sort of guy her fling was. Arrogant and reckless, he seemed like the kind of dude who thought he had life all wrapped up. Seeing her get ready that night was a bit of a trip. Every detail was considered, selecting the perfect earrings and fussing over her hair. Sure, she looked amazing, but her beauty seemed hollow without honesty. As we headed to the car, she did something she hadn't done in what felt like ages. She took my hand. I gave it a little squeeze. She shot me a smile, the kind that didn't quite light up her eyes. She really believed I was in the dark. The dinner party was at Matt and Jenna's place, a sprawling mid-century crib right on the edge of town, full of huge windows and a deck with a breathtaking view over the hills. This was exactly the kind of spot Eliza used to dream of living in. Now when she mentioned it, it felt less like a dream and more like a dig at what I hadn't pulled off. On our way there, She was tapped into her phone, grinning at messages from someone she didn't even bother hiding anymore. She figured I either couldn't piece it together or I didn't have the nerve to speak up. Once we got there, she let go of my hand like I was merely extra baggage. She moved through the crowd with laughter and greetings, headed straight for the group at the bar. I trailed along, shaking hands and grabbing a drink I had no intention of sipping. Spotting him wasn't hard. Ryan was across the room, overdoing the laughter at something Jenna said. He had this chill pose with one hand on the couch, right where Eliza would soon be sitting. Ryan, in his mid-30s, was one of those guys living the sleazy fantasy of being the leading man in the lives of married women. I knew more about him than he did. He'd convinced Eliza she looked like danger and desire all wrapped in red. Eliza greeted him with a touch on his wrist that said more than words could. He grinned back at her, as if they were exchanging whispers no one else could hear. The evening unfolded like a play we'd all practiced. There was small talk, laughter, and shifting conversations. But I wasn't really absorbing any of it. I was tuned into her, noticing how her real laughter was reserved for him. Occasionally, she'd glance my way and offer a quick, empty smile that seemed to say, "See, I'm playing nice." But it was meaningless. She was already someone else's. Jenna eventually called us to dinner, her voice cheerful and tipsy. We gathered around their big wooden table, couples naturally finding one another. Eliza took a seat next to Ryan as expected, and then made it worse by saving me a spot across from them, saying, "So we can chat." I went with it, nodded, and sat down quietly. The dinner talk was light at first. Favorite vacations, hotel horror stories, punctuated by Matt and Jenna poking fun at each other about his lack of direction. Then Matt switched gears to Ryan, almost setting up the pitch, asking if there was someone special or if he was still living the bachelor dream. Ryan gave a cheeky grin, his eyes lingering a second too long on Eliza, and said, "I'm learning to enjoy what's not really mine." The table chuckled, missing the hidden truth. Eliza fiddled with her napkin, searching it for answers. Ryan lifted his glass for a mocking toast, looking directly at me, and said, "She prefers me." His tone was soft, but the sting was unmistakable. It cut through the party buzz like glass scraping tile. A brief silence filled the room with a few coughs punctuating it. I just looked at him. I let the silence hang thick before I simply replied, "Enjoy her." That was it. No shouting, no drama, just two words that wrapped it all up. Eliza shot up in her chair, eyes wide with real fear this time, glancing around the room like a trapped animal. The energy in the space had shifted, making everyone a little unsure if they were witnessing a personal breakdown or something meant for public consumption. Jenna paused, her wine midway to her lips. Matt picked up on the tension and sat up straighter. Eliza tried to laugh it off, her voice shaky, like she could somehow undo the reality closing in around her. "That's not funny," she said, sounding more like a scared kid than someone in charge. "You think you're funny?" But not a soul laughed. I got up slowly and moved toward where Jenna kept her tech stuff. I pulled a nondescript flash drive from my jacket pocket and plugged it into the USB slot. "What are you doing?" Eliza's voice hit that high note, quick and panicky. I ignored her. Jenna's TV came to life. "Is this a movie?" Matt chimed in, probably hoping to shift the tense mood. Then the screen filled with a clip from inside a dim car. The dash cam shot wasn't slick. It was gritty, just like life tends to be. You could hear Ryan like he was right there. "That red blouse drives me wild." Eliza's voice chimed in right afterward. "That's why I wore it." The whole room fell into an eerie silence. As Eliza lunged for the remote, Jenna was quicker, her face a mix of shock and fury. The clips kept rolling, one after another. Consistent voices, consistent betrayal. And then came the part that everyone would talk about, a sharp gasp from a woman sitting at the far end. It was Ryan's wife. She'd slipped in quietly with Jenna's sister right before dinner, practically invisible until that drag of breath. "That's my husband," she said, her voice shaking with steel-edged anger. Eliza froze. Ryan turned around, eyes bulging as if he couldn't believe his eyes. His wife said nothing more, just rose from her seat, walked around the table, and slapped Eliza hard enough that the sound seemed to reflect off the walls. Eliza stumbled back, caught off guard. The room stayed silent. Ryan's wife headed straight for the door. Ryan hesitated but then shot up and dashed after her, probably realizing what he stood to lose. I nonchalantly turned off the TV, set down the remote, and looked at my wife. She was silent, her face drained of color, with nothing more to say. The echo of that slap stayed in the air, igniting the tension like a match to dry kindling. Eliza remained still, one hand on her cheek, her eyes distant, the other gripping the tablecloth as if trying to hold on to something solid. But reality had become a threat. No one moved. The room was a void of all the usual noises, clanking forks, soft music. Time seemed frozen. Everyone held their breath, trying to process the scene. Jenna was first to break the spell, not with words but by moving. She pushed away from the table, her chair scraping softly. "Eliza, is this real?" she asked, her voice hushed, as if speaking louder could burst the room wide open. Eliza didn't reply, just looked around like she'd woken up somewhere she didn't recognize. She felt the crushing weight of all those eyes, stunned, judging. Ryan was gone, chasing something he couldn't catch, but Eliza stayed, normally the puppeteer of her own narrative, caught without a script. Her cracks were now chasms. A friend of Eliza's, Melanie, someone I knew was a close confidant of hers, slowly got up and drifted away from the table, her wine glass still clutched in her hand. She cast Eliza one last look, then vanished into the kitchen. I stayed planted in my seat, no need for words. Betrayal, the ugly truth of feeling sidelined in your own life, was spread out on that screen. Finally, Craig, the mutual friend who'd introduced us all those years ago, broke the silence. "How long's this been happening?" More to himself than anyone else. "Jesus, Eliza." Her mouth opened, maybe to defend herself, but nothing came out. She swallowed hard, like whatever list of justifications she had in mind fell away, leaving her with nothing to say. So we're all just standing there when suddenly you hear it, unexpected footsteps echoing down the hallway. Next thing you know, two more people show up, her parents. It was kind of wild because Eliza hadn't even realized they'd arrived. But I knew, oh yeah, I knew. Jenna had put them on the guest list ages ago, but Eliza just never checked back with them. And just like that, bam, they're here catching everything as it's going down. The timing couldn't have been more perfect. As soon as that video starts playing in the living room, there's her mom, arms crossed tightly, looking super stern, just watching it all happen. Her dad's usually this quiet, stoic guy, but now he's giving her a look that says more than words ever could. It was the kind of look that cuts deeper than any shouting match. He edges closer and says, "I warned you," in this voice so cold it could freeze you in your tracks. Eliza's eyes get all big, like she can't believe it. She starts, "Dad," but he just lifts his hand to stop her. "I told you years ago," he presses on, "pride's a costly luxury, and you're paying the price for letting it get in the way of what really matters." Eliza jumps up, trying to fix things with action, like it's not too late. "It wasn't supposed to," she tries again, but now her mom steps in. "You've disgraced us." The words come out in a chill, devoid of any warmth. "You embarrassed your husband for everyone to see," she adds. "But worse, you've destroyed yourself." Eliza pleads, "Please, let's not do this here." But her mother's like, "Here is exactly where it needs to happen." They walk out right after, leaving Eliza standing there, losing her last lifeline. She turns to me, but not like someone she knew inside and out, more like I was a stranger. I didn't say anything. Instead, I thanked Jenna for the dinner and mumbled something about being sorry for the scene. Jenna just gave a small nod. No apologies needed. Just before leaving, I paused at the door and pulled out this slim envelope, placing it next to her untouched wine glass. She didn't move. "These are the divorce papers," I told her bluntly. "Everything's already in progress. All the details are in there." She opened her mouth to talk, but there was nothing left to say. The hurt wasn't fresh. It had been there all along, just buried deep. While she was blindsided by it all, I had been grieving the end of our marriage for some time. Now it was just about getting closure. Heading out into the cold night, I saw Ryan standing in the driveway, caught in some heated discussion with his wife. Eventually, she just shoved him away, jumped in her car, and took off. He turned his gaze towards me, looking all exhausted and mixed up, But I just breezed past him like he was a stranger, not the guy who played a part in ruining my marriage. Back in the house, you could feel the party fall apart. People were whispering, chairs screeching as they were pulled back, and everyone left behind in shock. And there was Eliza, right smack in the middle of a mess she'd spun, somehow not seeing it coming. She used to love parties because they were her escape, letting her be someone new. But now she stood there, uncovered, facing the reality she created. The next morning, my phone was blowing up. Calls, texts, notifications from Jenna, Craig, Melanie, even my accountant. I wasn't in a hurry to answer anyone. They probably wanted explanations, maybe an apology for how everything went down. But I didn't feel like I owed anyone anything. For me, it was just turning the next page. Oddly enough, Eliza didn't reach out right away. After everything, the shame, the undeniable truth staring her in the face, she was silent, probably still trying to wrap her head around her world spiraling out of control. Maybe she thought she could spin the story in her favor somehow, but that ship had sailed, and she was stuck with a version of herself that had become unwanted. Around midday, Jenna finally got through. I answered her call because I felt she deserved some sort of explanation. I don't really know what to say, she admitted. You don't have to say anything, I assured her. She sighed. You seemed so calm last night, like you were expecting it. I was, I admitted. There was a pause before Jenna spoke again. She's been showing up here every weekend, for brunch, yoga, acting like everything's just peachy. Perfection was her thing, I said. Perfect illusions, perfect lies. She's had plenty of practice. Jenna hesitated before adding, her mom and dad called this morning. They're done. Her dad said he won't see her until she finally takes a hard look at herself. I wasn't surprised by what happened. What threw me off was what happened later that afternoon. I was in the middle of packing up my things at the guest house, where I'd been staying during those final few weeks we had together, when I heard a knock. I opened the door, and there was Eliza. She just stood there, arms wrapped around herself like she was trying to keep it together. Her eyes were brimming with tears. I don't even know where to start, she finally said. Then don't, I replied, keeping my voice steady. Her lip quivered. Just give me 5 minutes. I thought about it and then let her in. I needed to hear what she thought could still be salvaged from this mess. She walked in slowly, like she was a stranger in a museum filled with memories of her own making. Her eyes scanned the half-empty shelves and the worn spot on the couch where I'd been sleeping alone for months. I never wanted it to end like this, she murmured softly, standing near the table but not daring to sit. It just happened. No, I said. Things don't just happen. People say that to make themselves feel less guilty. Her voice shook. I didn't mean to fall for him. You didn't just fall, Eliza. You jumped. My words hit her hard. He meant nothing, she said quickly, a hint of desperation in her voice. I was lost. I told her. Then you should have looked for me. I was always here. Finally, she sank into the chair, her shoulders heavy with regret. I was angry at you, at everything. You stopped seeing me, she said. I never stopped seeing you, I told her. I just stopped running after someone who didn't want to be caught. Her head snapped up. So this is really it? I gestured towards the papers. You signed the first set I sent you. You just didn't realize what it meant back then. Tears spilled down her cheeks, and she made no attempt to wipe them away. Everyone's turned on me, she whispered. Even my parents won't answer my calls. They finally see you, I said. Probably for the first real time. She confessed. I made a mistake. No, I corrected. You made a choice. Silence filled the room. She seemed like a shadow of the person she once was. Then she asked something unexpected. Can I come back? I couldn't believe it. You're seriously asking that after everything that's happened? She nodded, looking lost and vulnerable. I don't have anywhere else to go. You had everywhere, I pointed out, and you threw it all away. I walked over to the door and held it open. She hesitated, then stood, wiped her face, and slowly walked out. Just as she was leaving, she turned back. Do you hate me? She asked quietly. I shook my head. No, but I don't feel anything anymore. That hit her harder than any harsh words could. Hate still connects people, but feeling nothing means it's truly over. Her shoulders shook with sobs as she walked away, and her steps were unsteady. I felt nothing. That evening, I got a message from her dad. "You did the right thing. We should have realized it sooner. Sorry for what you went through." The fantasy world Eliza had constructed had finally come apart, and she was the only one blindsided by it. 3 months drifted by. Life has this strange way of resetting after everything crumbles. Days passed without her being around. No more tense dinners. I found peace in routines that had been lost to me. Morning walks without needing to explain. Making coffee how I liked it, not worrying about anyone else's preference. Reading late into the night tucked in bed. Silence, once suffocating, became comforting. There was no more resigned sighing or pretend teamwork. I moved into a cozy, pleasant apartment overlooking streets lined with trees. Not extravagant, but just what I needed. A clean slate, light filtering in, my own space. The old life, shared places, double sinks, matching robes, all gone. Replaced with something simpler, smaller, but real. I never blocked her number. She texted once with a bare message. No punctuation. "Can we talk?" I stared at it for a long time but never replied. Replying would have suggested that there was something still left to solve, but there wasn't. Everything significant had already been dealt with back then. Picture this, a room bursting with people, all witnessing someone's deepest secrets being laid bare. Jenna got in touch with me a few weeks after the whole fiasco. She just wanted to check on how I was holding up. She mentioned that people couldn't stop talking about that evening, replaying the moment when the TV flickered to life, struggling to make sense of how the woman they thought they knew was the same person who unraveled. I made it clear I wasn't keen on hearing any of it. Gossip and whispered scandals weren't my thing, and I had no desire to dive into the drama. I was ready to move on from that part of my life. It boiled down to a simple dinner with a guy and a woman grappling with consequences she never saw coming. We never crossed paths again after that.